So we got James the astrophotographer on, Pekka's on, Book Davies is on. Everybody's happy that Jerry Hubble's back. And Jerry's so happy he's giving out free cash to anybody that's watching this program.
Free cash. Yeah.
Just state how much cash you need or want.
Just state it and you can
give him your routing number and your bank account number, and he'll take care of it. It's through he has a representative in Nigeria, I think, is where it is. Someplace like that.
Yeah, it'll be handled by that guy.
Mm-hmm. I think that guy's somehow connected to royalty, and if you give him that information, Jerry will give you how much money you need from, the king's bank account. Something like that. Harold says he's going to give you $20. Oh, he needs $20.
That's all. He wants to increase his chances of getting anything, so he doesn't ask for $1 million.
Oh, James wants to make sure. He says, "Don't you need my social security number too?" Come to think of it, it would be handy. It would be nicer if we had that. Eduardo says, "I have a briefcase that was left at the airport full of cash. I'll split it with you, Prince of Nigeria. This is not a scam."
Right, you can trust me. You can trust me.
As many times as I was contacted by representatives in Nigeria, you would have thought, that I would at least taken some of the money, but I said, "Nah, you guys keep it." James says if you give the social security number, it makes the whole process go a lot quicker. I bet it does. Nice to see everybody here today.
Did you mean to share your screen, Scott?
Yes, it's sharing?
Yeah, it's sharing right now. No, it's not.
How about now?
It's sharing. I don't know if you wanted to share it or not. Typically you don't.
Yeah, typically not. There we go.
It's being shared right now. I mean,
I'm standing here on hollow ground. And the reason why I say that is that I have this feeling that I'm in the presence of something sacred. I love coming to see something like this because to me it's as amazing and as beautiful and as awe-inspiring as any temple or any sacred site. And the sacred part to me is what's done with instruments like this. The exploration, the discovery. But where I have a connection is that all of this started with William J. McDonald, an amateur astronomer who had a small telescope. And that small telescope inspired him to want to build something grand like this, because that small telescope took him across the universe. The power of a small telescope is to propel you to explore on your own and to witness the universe for yourself. And who knows where it would take you. For William J. McDonald, it took him to imagine that a research institution like this could be built. And it is still his legacy, but it is also something that is a living, thriving thing that continues on to this very day. This is an incredible dark sky night. It is like being in a temple of stars. Earlier, we were talking about what a small telescope could do. Well, I can tell you that I was able to look at a galaxy millions of light years away. And to see something like that and to really start exploring and start discovering things for yourself is really what changes you. It doesn't cost anything to get into astronomy. And in fact, probably going to cost nothing because you probably already have one of these in your garage or up in your attic right now. The experience that you're going to get when you come out under the dark skies and you explore with your eyes is going to change you forever. It's time to get out there and start exploring. It's time to make those discoveries for yourself. Well, hello everybody. This is Scott Roberts with the Explore Scientific, the Explore Alliance, and the OpenGOTO Live community. And wow, we've got Jerry Hubble back in the room here, and I'm so happy.
Yep.
You know, so we're glad that you're looking strong. You sound good.
Yeah, I feel good.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. So people missed you, of course, and
I appreciate that. That's good to hear.
yeah. So, I know you've still been busy doing all kinds of things, and certainly one of the things was getting the new version of the firmware ready. And so, where are we at with that?
So that's pretty much ready to go. I was talking to Wes earlier today. This illness set me back about a week and a half or something or so, and but I've got caught up with what's been going on. The beta testing has gone very well, actually. We've made a few little minor tweaks and adjustments, but overall the system's working really well with our beta testers. And so I'm ready to release it on Monday. I think we're going to release it to everybody to download, and I'll be announcing that on our forum when it's available for download. And there's actually 3 new things that we're going to have available. The first one is, of course, the firmware update that includes a lot of new features, and I'm going to share my screen here in a minute to talk about these features. So we'll have the firmware, which implements a lot of new, I guess you could call it technology. It's just different things that Wes and I have been working on for the last few months to make it easier and better for our customers to use the system. It's going to make it much easier to configure compared to what it has been. The other thing is we've got a new ASCOM driver that goes along with it that has some tweaks and some enhancements. Also, it's been a while since I released a version of the ASCOM driver. That the ASCOM driver has been pretty stable over the last year or so, year and a half actually. So the only changes I made to the ASCOM driver support the new firmware features that we have. And then the third one is a new configuration tool that's a simplified tool to configure the system. And the configuration manager is still needed to update the firmware because I haven't got that feature built into the configuration tool to upload the firmware. That will come a little later, but the configuration tool that I'm releasing with the new firmware is specifically for this firmware to update it with the configuration that the user needs to set. So, and I'll show you what that looks like here in a minute. So, do you have any questions about where we're at, Scott, with that? I mean, that's pretty much on schedule. I know we're a couple weeks behind where I wanted to be originally, but
Yeah.
I think overall the system works really well.
Yeah. So I'm anxious, as everybody else is, to see the all the new features in action here. So
I know that I installed it on your scope system, and I think you've had your system out under the sky a couple times since it was loaded on there. Once.
Yeah.
How did it work out for you?
Yeah, so far so good. I mean, it was, I had nice images coming down to the moon, and then there was like a thin layer of clouds, and those kind of disappeared, and I was able to get some nice images of the Orion region, and so it was just doing an initial shakeout after the firmware was loaded on, but
Right.
normally it all seemed, perfect. So
Okay, great. I also installed it on our observatory and have been using it for the last 3 or 4 weeks. And generally, typically for me, since I'm the developer, I typically don't have problems with it, right? Because I know how it works.
It's going to work for you.
It's always going to work for me, right? Exactly. And I don't, and because I just test what I know and try to test all the features the way I know that it works and make the settings the way I know that it works. So for me, it's hard to make it break, in terms of doing the wrong thing.
That's why you give it to me. That's why you
right.
give it
That's why I get to you,
right?
and that's why we wanted our beta testing to be public. Also, that's why we went through 2 beta cycles. One was a private beta session with about 6 people that helped a lot when we did that starting about 2 months ago, and then a month ago we released it for the public beta, and we've gotten excellent feedback from. We had like 23 people volunteer for the public beta, and we probably had feedback from half of those people in terms of different questions and different things that they saw that we were able to tweak on. But let me go ahead and share my screen. This is just a quick list of the features that are in the firmware in the ASCOM driver. So the first one is this is a universal firmware for all the existing customers and all the systems going forward. So it's completely backward compatible. You do have to configure a couple of the parameters in the memory to make it work on the older systems because there was a couple of changes compared to the old system. But once you do that, then it's fine. There's no more switching of the serial and Wi-Fi communications channel. It's always available concurrently, so you can connect to either one at your leisure and not have to worry about it. You can connect to Explore Stars, and then once you say, "Oh, I want to connect my ASCOM driver to the serial port," just plug it in and connect it, and it'll work fine. We've got some internal stuff where we can detect. We automatically have the system automatically detects hardware features to help the so that the user doesn't have to know every detail about the system to configure it. It already knows certain things about the system once it boots up. There is some changes to the flashing LED flashes that when the release notes get put out, you'll understand what those are about, and it has to do with some of the new auto run features and the Wi-Fi communications disconnect type stuff. Those are different flash modes that tell you what it's doing. So when you boot the system up and you see the flashing, then you know for sure that it's in, that it's available the way it's configured, the way you set it. That's some of the LED flashes. We did enhance in the ASCOM driver and in the firmware. We did improve some of the pointing and tracking performance. It was always great, but I'm always looking to improve it if I can get away with it. If I figure out a way of doing something that's better to make it perform better, then I'm going to go ahead and try to implement that, and that's what we've done here. This watchdog enable disable, that's just a switch now. That's a simple thing on a configuration. You don't have to worry about using different firmware like it has in the previous version. So previously we had two different firmwares that you had to load if you wanted the communications to continue. The mount to continue to track when you lost communications with the Explorer Star. So if you turned your Explorer Star's tablet off, or you disconnected your host computer, there was two different ways to set it. One with one firmware was it would stop tracking. And that's a safety feature, okay? If you were to walk away with your tablet, you wanted the mount to stop, perhaps. But some people that do astrophotography wanted it to continue to track when you disconnect. You want to save battery power on your tablet, so that's why you would do that. You would say, oh, I want you to track all the time. I want to turn off my tablet and just continue to take pictures for an hour or two without me having to interact with it. So that's what that allows. We do have the channel changing device, we call it the dongle in the past, but it's a channel changing device, was for the Wi-Fi channel, but we've also added another function for that allows you to set whether it's UDP or TCP protocol for the wireless connection for the Wi-Fi. And that's still needed for the iXOS 100 mounts for the to use Explorer Stars or to use the ASCOM driver wirelessly. There's no way around that because of the way the Wi-Fi module works. But that's a simplified thing now. It's not a big deal to switch that. We have a new feature, which is really nice for people that want to take their mount out and just use it in the traditional old school way, where they just plop the mount down and they point their scope to an object, plop it down near polar alignment, and then point it at a feature manually, loosen the clutches, move it to an object, and then tighten the clutches up, and it will track without having any connection to a computer or anything. You just turn it on, you just power it up, and it tracks, just like an old school mount. And then along with that, you can select which hemisphere you want it to track in, whether you're in Australia or you're in America. It will set the tracking the correct direction. And then finally, there's some enhanced configuration parameter storage that we did internal to the system to help us better manage those features. So these are the main things that are in this new firmware. Are there any questions about any of these, Scott, that people are asking?
One guy says he doesn't have any USB ports or serial ports on his laptop.
He doesn't have a USB port on his laptop?
There's no serial port on his laptop.
Well, so what we suggest you do, we tell all our customers to buy USB to serial adapter cable, and they're really inexpensive. And we have that selection available for you to do that. That takes care of it. Now, if you have an iXOS 100, that's already got a built-in USB mini USB connector. So you just have your standard data USB to mini USB cable to connect up to your host computer with the iXOS 100 mount.
Right. And what else do we have here? Any other questions? I have pro hardware. I have professional hardware in the shop that uses parallel port and nothing else.
Oh, parallel, like a printer parallel port? That's old school stuff. Yeah, you'd have to add a probably if your system's available to add boards to it, you'd have to buy a USB port card to it, or you could buy. You may be able to get. I'm surprised if it has a parallel port, it would have a serial port also, which you could buy an adapter with USB also to serial to USB there. But that sounds like a really old computer system.
Yeah. Right. Well, I mean, it's one of the things I ended up doing for myself is I bought that nut computer.
Right.
That worked out pretty good for me. So.
Right. So my plans are to.
That was like $300 or something.
Yeah. My plans are to get the documentation finalized for the release notes and to go ahead and bundle it up and make it available on the forum in the files section to download with all the instructions and everything, and also notes about the usage of it and what you're required to have for that to make use of all the system features. Right. And that'll be released on Monday.
Well, good enough. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
So what is we haven't heard much about the MSRO or sorry guys. I actually lost power on my computer twice during this broadcast. But the way that we have this broadcast set up, just because Jerry was still on, my computer and my whole system shut down twice.
I was wondering about that because I saw it change and wasn't sure what that was.
It's like a flash in my room. I have no idea.
Yeah.
What happened, and then it happened again, and
that's wild.
And now my camera's like all zoomed in. I have no idea why it's like that. So
it's like it's set to non-HD. Maybe you have to convert it back to HD. I don't know.
I have no idea. It's really strange. Very, very strange.
I noticed you have my book back there. That's really nice.
That's why I zoomed in. That's right.
Yeah, that's right.
Make this shameless plug for Jerry's
book
on remote observatories for amateur astronomers. So.
Right.
But, yeah, I hope that people that are getting observatories now, and there's a lot more of you guys doing that, that you're taking advantage of all the remote tools that are available today,
And there's a lot of tools available and a lot of technology that people are coming out with. There's a lot of new, what am I trying to say? There's a lot of people developing new software. We've seen all this new software over the last 5 years that helps automate stuff quite a bit. Nina is one system that I know Wes uses. Nina. Mm-hmm. SGE has been out for a while. There's other plate solving software. There's a lot of different plate solving software that's freely available now that 5-10 years ago was not available at all. And so all this automation and technology has really upped the game for people that do astrophotography and made it much simpler for people to get going with the systems. And it's important to buy systems that are completely compatible with this software. And the main system, like for our PMC-8 system, we use ASCOM. If you're into astrophotography, the first thing you want to read about is ASCOM. That's the API component object model that has been out there for quite a few years now, probably 15 years. It's very mature, and it's very, that's what everybody uses basically to make sure that everything can talk to each other. All the different software can talk with all the different equipment, and you can integrate your system very easily with the ASCOM. There's also Indy, which is another object-oriented astronomy instrument system that allows you to do the same thing with Linux, and Mac OS can use Indy drivers, and Linux is the main thing it was developed for, but I'm sure there's other Linux type systems that can use it also, but that's available also. And then in these small boxes, the Raspberry Pi and the these NUCs and everything else that people want to run Linux on, those that you would use Indy. I guess what's the other one that Tyler bought? What's that system called that he bought?
I don't know.
It's the standalone camera box for the ZWO camera. What the heck?
It wasn't the ASI Air.
ASI Air, that's right. That uses Linux, and that uses the Indy drivers.
Yeah.
And the PMC-8 drivers built into the Indy. It's part of the Indy platform. It's been that way for a couple of years. Michael Fulbright, we can thank Michael Fulbright for creating the Indy driver for the PMC-8 system originally about 3 years ago, almost 4 years ago now, 3.5 years ago. And I know that this new firmware, there's been a couple of questions about the new firmware using it with the Indy driver, and there is a couple of features that we added that I know, I can't recall his name now. He's working on the changes to the Indy driver right now to make the new firmware work. So he's part of the beta test team. So he's making that work for everybody that uses the ASI Air, which is very welcome. That's the nice thing about this OpenGOTO community. With these independent developers, they can update the software when we release new stuff.
Right.
So that
Gillis is asking, does the PMC-8 or ASI Air have an Ethernet port for single connection?
The PMC-8, we don't have an Ethernet interface to it, although you could add one pretty simply as a standalone, little box. You can buy an Ethernet to serial adapter. It's called a terminal server. That makes it very easy to add an Ethernet connector.
9-pin connector or the J?
Yeah, so it'd be instead of the, like a wireless or like we have with the USB adapter, it's just the same thing except to be an Ethernet adapter. You can buy those. They're called, in the old days, they're called terminal servers because they converted serial communications to Ethernet networking. But that's a good choice. We did develop the PMC-8 originally with the daughter board system for the communications port. So that's why we have a wireless board as a daughter board on the G11 and the XS2 modules. We originally developed that daughter board system so that we could create another type of communications port for an Ethernet port adapter, or a USB port adapter maybe, or any other kind of industrial communications adapter. We could tie it right into the PMC-8. So that we haven't carried that forward because there hasn't really been any request or any demand for that type of system. I know that Steve Siedentop has asked for an Ethernet adapter interface for the system over the last couple of years. He's been asking about that. So we may end up developing a daughter board for that, because we're also using the daughter board concept to upgrade the Wi-Fi module. The existing current Wi-Fi module is the microchip RN131 module, and I've already got a design for the ESP Wi-Fi module to switch that daughter board out. So we may end up having 2 or 3 different daughter boards, 2 different Wi-Fi modules, and then maybe an Ethernet module, and then maybe another one if we decide we want to have some other kind of interface for communications to the PMC-8. But right now there isn't that much demand for it, and it's not one of our priorities.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, that's fine. We that pretty much, I think, wraps up our program today. It's kind of a short one, but I'm really glad to have you back on the shows again, Jerry.
Yeah.
I know everyone else is too.
Yeah, I miss it. It's no fun being out of service,
No, no.
It's it's pretty frustrating, especially for me. The biggest thing was headaches, okay, during this time. And you can't think straight about especially if you're technically minded and you're trying to get really detailed technical stuff, you can't think anything about that stuff at all when you have a headache. You can't keep anything straight in your head, when you're trying to do some logical thinking.
Right.
And to me, that's the most frustrating part about it. I just can't think about. I have to veg out in front of the TV or something. I can't. I can't think about anything, that I want to think about. So it's
No aspirin, nothing that could make you.
well, the aspirin helps some, but again, it's just so fatiguing, and it's tough to think about anything really detailed.
I'm glad you're all better now, so that's
Hmm.
great. Um, we have possibly tomorrow. I'm putting together a new show about microscopes and microscopy, so I may get brave and launch that tomorrow. Depends on if I get enough content, So I'm still working out content. And any of you that are already involved in microscopy and would like to share views on this show or talk about a technique like anything, preparing a microscope, slides or how to gather specimens, those kinds of things. Um, get in touch with me. I would be very happy to have you on the program. Cameron wants to see tardigrades. Of course, I've got tardigrades over here. I think I do, anyways. They're still floating in water back there, so we'll see. I've had them all year, so uh,
Yeah, yeah.
and so I'm excited about all that stuff. As I might have mentioned on another show, Anka Morbitzer. Anka is working in the um, at Bresser, Germany, and that's where the microscopes are designed at. They're designed in Germany, and the Bresser line has some pretty nice microscopes. And I have one on my desk, and Dave Eicher, of all people, I don't know why I say it like that, because Dave Eicher is really interested in meteorites and minerals and stuff. So we sent him so that he could also participate on some of these shows, a stereo microscope. So it's got two objective lenses looking at the same thing, and then you've got binocular lenses for observing through it. So
Right.
visually to you, it looks 3D, but it's also got a trinocular head on it, so he can put a camera on there. So
Camera.
he's got a camera. He's been busy learning how to use the software and all that stuff. So he,
I've got an interesting application that I use that's a little different with electronics. I bought a microscope several years ago when I first started doing this close-up work, and I've got electronic examination. I do inspection of circuit boards and things that maybe I could demonstrate.
yeah, that would be cool. That'd be cool.
Um,
That is a whole deal all by itself. Certainly an industrial application, but for people out there that are designing small things, whether maybe you're writing, your next novel on a grain of sand or something,
yeah,
you're gonna.
you're trying to fit a million angels on your pinhead.
That's right. That's right. It can be done with a real fine.
Yep. You just have to.
That's right. So anyhow, um, but yeah, that's it. And the show is going to be called Microcosmos Voyages is what it's called. So, um, and it's going to be fun. So I'm looking
That's
forward to it.
cool.
Yeah. Beatrice says, I also have a trinocular microscope, but I still got much to learn. So do I, by the way. For the moment, I'm really occupied with astrophotography. Well, one thing
That's a whole career in itself.
that's
Astrophotography is a
very
whole
true.
career.
That's very true. Yeah. But when you're not image processing and it's cloudy out, you might want to jump back to the microscope. So,
Yeah.
yep. Anyhow, I'm really happy you guys joined up with us today. Jerry, I'm glad you're back. And until tomorrow, we'll see you at 4 o'clock And there is, I'm supposed to be on another, an astronomy club is asking me to give a lecture. So, there's a nighttime thing, but I won't be broadcasting it, unfortunately. But if they are broadcasting it, I'll let you know tomorrow where you can watch it to see all of the things that are going down. You guys take care, and we will see you tomorrow.
Hi, I'm Nikki Cox, a spacecraft operations engineer. I've been lucky enough to work for U.S. Space Command, in the commercial space industry as well, and now I'm at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory working on the Mars 2020 Perseverance rover. Don't forget to visit NEAF, the virtual experience, April 10th, 2021. It's the world's largest space and astronomy expo. Go to neafexpo.com. I hope you have a great time.
I'm Kent Martz. Explore Scientific recently added weather and clocks to our lineup. These clocks set their time within NHTSA's radio station to keep them accurate to the second. Our clocks come with a variety of functions. This one is a simple alarm clock, but other clocks come with features including projecting the time on the wall or ceiling, outdoor-indoor temperature, a host of other functions including weather forecasting. They come in a variety of sizes and colors, the colors being a black bezel or a white bezel. In the weather category, we currently offer a 5-in-1 and a 7-in-1 system that do time, temperature, wind speed, things like that, using the included outdoor sensor. This runs off of 3 AA batteries and lasts for a long time. The wireless connection allows you to send your weather data to Weather Cloud or Weather Underground. Additional sensors are available, including a thermal hydro sensor, a floating pool or spa sensor, and a soil sensor. For more information about these products or to purchase them, go to explorescientific.com. I'm Kent Martz with Explore Scientific.